Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In today's episode, we're covering today's White House press briefing, where John Kirby and Karine Jean-Pierre get questioned on a multitude of topics, and they get caught in a lie. Before we jump into any of that, please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below, and head over to any of the links in our description section and get yourself a copy of my book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Folks, you're seeing what they're doing in real time. They're destroying this country from the inside out. And lastly, hit that join tab over there in the corner next to the Bald Brad Show logo. Become a member today. Become a true American patriot. And lastly, head over to baldbrad.com. Get yourself some merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, and a Bald Brad Show mug, folks. We're buying these up like they're hotcakes. You're never going to feel more patriotic than drinking out of this bad boy with us. Without further ado, we're going to kick it off with Wonder Woman from Fox News. Jackie Heinrich questioning John Kirby on the hacking that was done supposedly by the Chinese on cabinet members' emails and computers. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Thanks, Karine. John, the Treasury Secretary said of the hacking attack that she has concerns. The U.S. has expressed those concerns to China, but nevertheless, we intend to deepen our discussions with China and increase our engagement. Doesn't that send the message to China that they can keep getting away with this?
No, the message it sends is that the way you handle tensions, the way you deal with disagreements, the way you best deal with issues like this, assuming it's I'm not in a position to attribute this, but assuming this is a PRC hacking group, is engagement, is being able to have candid, forthright conversations and hold each other accountable for behavior as appropriate. Let's not get ahead of the investigation. FBI is still working on it. I don't think we should get ahead of that. And if there needs to be, as Jake said yesterday, if there needs to be accountability, then we'll execute accountability. But that doesn't mean, even if it is a hacking group from the PRC, doesn't mean that you torpedo an entire bilateral relationship, the most consequential in the world, militarily, economically, politically, because of one act. You deal with it, you hold people accountable as appropriate, but you still got to work on making sure this relationship, this competition, and it is a competition, Jackie, is handled responsibly.
Why is it an if there needs to be accountability, though? Shouldn't someone be held accountable for hacking cabinet-level officials in this administration?
Of course. My answer to that was if it's, in fact, a PRC hacking group, and that was the context of the question. But yes, of course.
Was Gina Raimondo the highest-level official to be hacked? Was she the only cabinet-level official?
Secretary Raimondo?
Yeah.
As far as I know, yes. But again, I don't want to get ahead of an investigation.
And then on the
Probably means there was more, folks, because he gave the same answer to when there was a Chinese spy balloon flying across the United States that the military watched leave mainland China, finally shot it over the Atlantic. And then somebody asked a very similar question of, hey, are there any more of these that we know about or should know about? Well, I don't want to get ahead of it. And then they shoot another 2 or 3 objects out of the sky. By the way, still to this day, we know nothing about. So typical messaging from John Kirby. And do you like also that he goes, oh, well, if it's somebody that's outside of the PRC, well, couldn't they just be hired by the Chinese Communist Party to hack into cabinet members' emails or computers? Couldn't they just basically outsource it to somebody else to do it? So this is a common theme from the White House of, well, the Chinese can do things that are bad, but nothing's going to happen to them. And Joe Biden's in the pocket of the Chinese because they have so much information on him that he's not going to do anything about it either. So this is the type of messaging that we get. Thrown under the rug. Oh, it's a competition. It's all these things.
F-16s and F-35s to the Middle East. What was the final straw in pushing the Pentagon to make this move?
I'd refer you to DOD.
Anything else on why that decision was made, though? I know that it's been a lead up since May with all of the maritime issues, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the additional assets.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, again, I'd point you to the Pentagon to talk about that with more specificity. But we have seen in just recent weeks an increased level of activity in the maritime environment of Iranian attacks on maritime shipping. They have become more bellicose, more active, and more dangerous to peaceful maritime shipping in the Gulf region. And the Secretary of Defense wants to make sure, as he should, that we've got the proper capabilities and assets and readiness in place to deal with that.
Okay, just a couple more.
Not a bad answer from John Kirby on the second question there regarding the jets and things that are going on with the Iranians attacking ships. But it's just so amazing to me that every time there's a question about the Chinese in correlation to what America's going to be doing about anything, it's always nothing. Have you noticed that? There's no sanctions really. There's nothing that we're going to push forward into like hurting them in some way, shape, or form. They released a massive virus on the globe. Still nothing's happened to them, by the way. It's so odd. It's so odd that nobody in the media is really sparking this idea that Joe Biden's in the pocket of the Chinese, and we're just, throwing it under the rug. Where remember, Donald Trump, every single day we heard about this, that he was in bed with the Russians, he was in bed with the Chinese, our adversaries, our enemies, he's a Russian agent, he's a Russian pawn, all these things, but Joe Biden's nothing. Joe Biden's just some old dullard that we're allowing to just roam around the White House aimlessly, has no idea what the hell he's doing, sleeping at all hours of the day, and we're not going to bring any issues or awareness to any of that, and John Kirby and the rest of the communications from the White House are just going to skirt everything right under the rug. Well, moving into our next segment, we have Phil Wegman, the gladiator of Real Clear Politics, questioning John Kirby about allowing basically military personnel to have abortions. You guys, his answer is insane. He's correlating recruitment to allowing military people or the prospective military personnel, those that are maybe trying to be recruited into the military, by having us have low numbers of recruitment and correlating that to abortions. It's so insane. And he's basically going, hey, we think they should have abortions and basically we should pay for it.
Thank you, Green. The administration has been critical of Senator Tuberville with his holds on military promotions because of social policy and saying that he is harming military readiness. On the flip side of that impasse, and this is something that Republican lawmakers have raised, why is the new DoD policy on abortion critical to military readiness?
I'm really glad you asked that question. No, I mean, I really am. 1 in 5 members of the U.S. military are women, 20%. And we're an all-volunteer force. Nobody's forcing you to sign up and go. People volunteer to go. You raise your right hand and you say, I'm gonna do this for a few years or even for my life. And it might cost me my life to do it. And when you sign up and you make that contract, you have every right to expect that the organization, in this case the military, is going to take care of you, and they're going to take care of your families. And they're going to make sure that you can serve with dignity and respect, no matter who you are, who you love, or how you worship or don't. And our policies, whether they're diversity, inclusion, and equity, or whether they're about transgender individuals who qualify physically and mentally to serve, to be able to do it with dignity, or whether it's about female service members, 1 in 5, or female family members being able to count on the kinds of health care and reproductive care specifically that they need to serve. That is a foundational, sacred obligation of military leaders across the river. I've seen it myself, and it matters because it says we're invested in you because you are being willing to invest in us. You're investing your life, your family's livelihood with us. We owe you that back in return. I had a chance a couple of weeks ago to meet.
This is where he turns political, and I promise I'll let you finish. It just shows you how politicized our military has gotten, because it's almost like he's running for office here. Oh, well, I've talked to a family, and I promise we'll get into what he says. But the problem here is he's talking about people, in a nutshell, sacrificing their livelihood to serve our military, which we love. We're big military people here on the Bald Brad Show. We got veterans that even watch the show. It's just astonishing that he's correlating somebody giving up their life or sacrificing their life to serve in our military to giving them access to abortions to kill another life so that they can serve in our military. That so that we have military readiness. Like, we want to make sure that you could kill basically unborn babies so that you could serve this country. That is such an insane messaging coming from the podium. And the Democrat Party and the left aren't going to bat an eye over this. That the military is like, yes, let's kill our children so that we have military readiness. And 1 in 5 people in the military are women. And then he's going to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. And you know how the left is all about equality. Why is it not every 3 in 6 people in the military are women? Why is it 4 or 5 men in the military? Why is it 80% men? Why is it not more women? Why are we not having equality within all that? Of course, I'm being facetious, but it's just astonishing messaging that they're saying, hey, we want to kill babies so that we can have more military recruitment.
With some military spouses here at the White House. Some were active duty members, some were spouses, all were women. And 201, they told me, that abortion laws in this country that are now being passed are absolutely having an effect on their willingness to continue serving in uniform or to encourage or discourage, in this case, their spouses from continuing service. So if you don't think there's going to be a retention and a morale issue, think again, because it's already having that effect. I have a son in the Navy. I think you all know that, and son-in-law too. They're both stationed down in Norfolk on destroyers. And they're proud to keep serving their country in the Navy, but the Navy told them where to go. You go where you're told. That's the way orders work. You go where you're assigned. You don't get to choose. And so what happens if you get assigned to a state like Alabama, which has a pretty restrictive abortion law in place, and you're concerned about your reproductive care? What do you do? Do you say no and get out? Well, some people may decide to do that. And what does that mean? That means we lose talent, important talent. And we're, again, an all-volunteer force. Recruiting is tough enough as it is with a very strong economy out there. We want to keep the people that we get, and we want to make sure that they can continue to serve. So it can have an extremely significant impact on our recruiting.
So
and
mind-blowing.
retention. Not to mention, it's just the right darn thing to do for people that raise their hand and agree to serve in the military.
Okay.
Oh my God. It's just the darn right thing to do. You serve the military. We want to make sure you have that access to kill an innocent child so you can serve the United States military. Holy crap, man. That is easily the most insane thing that I've literally heard from John Kirby. Like, by far, in all the years of covering the White House press briefings. And I will go as far to say that is one of the most insane things I've actually heard on that podium. It's probably top 5. Just so we can have military readiness. And I like that he's correlating our military readiness to the idea of abortions and the fact that we can't get people into our military. How about the fact that just America's obese just all the way around, and that they literally don't meet the physical requirements and they can't meet the aptitude test of actually getting into the military? But we won't talk about that one. But diversity, equity, inclusion, pushing this woke agenda on our military personnel, you guys. Our military probably has never been so weak in at least modern history to where it's at right now. It is mind-blowing. It's scary, especially when you have Russia invading Ukraine, Iran wanting to wipe you off the face of the earth, or Israel. You have China wanting to invade Taiwan, China competing at historic levels against the United States on, just most recently attacking a sitting cabinet member's emails and computer, to building military readiness in the South China Sea. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but, hey, make sure that you can give access to people killing innocent children so that they can have military recruitment numbers. It is so baffling, but I'm curious to hear what you think about that one in the comment section below. And by the way, I know I'm plugging my book a lot, but we actually have a whole chapter. Our last chapter in this book is all about abortion, and I think it'll change for those that might be pro-choice into being the pro-life category, or at least seeing where Roe v. Wade came from. We start with Griswold v. Connecticut and actually go beyond that. We go about 1,000 years into the past and kind of trickle down into what's going on with modern day. And we also talk about the justices and their clerks and what they had to say about Roe v. Wade and why it was bad law. I break it down in simple form, folks, so that anybody can read it and understand it. Pick yourself up a copy again at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles today. Our next segment of the day is regarding this gentleman here questioning Karine Jean-Pierre on them being fact-checked on Twitter about these real wages. The White House keeps saying, hey, real wages are up. Well, that ain't the truth. And they get caught in a lie here. Let's roll it.
Last night saying that real wages for the average American worker are higher than they were before the pandemic. That tweet has now been annotated with a message from the platform saying that is not factual, and that they have some stats and some charts footnoted along with that. Do you welcome that kind of contestation from tech platforms?
We disagree.
Well, we disagree. Oh, well, we got caught lying once again. And earlier, she got questioned on this very similar question. And in a nutshell, she was cherry picking the data. She was talking about how they're starting like 2021 or something like that. So real wages aren't up since Joe Biden took office. That real wages are actually down, and the American economy isn't doing as well as they are presenting it to be, called Bidenomics. And the reason why they have to rebrand the economy is because now that they're finally out of this transition phase that they've been boasting about for literally 2 years, that things are going to get better. Well, things aren't better. Things are actually going down the drain relatively quickly. And so if they can rebrand this in a positive light and say, well, Bidenomics is just really kicking off. We're finally out of that transition phase and moving into Joe Biden's policies like the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure plan, really having and taking hold of the economy, and it's going to grow. No, it's not, you guys. They're driving this country into the ground. They have 2 years, or had 2 years, to resolve issues. You have these lefties boasting about how inflation is still up 3%, which is an astonishing thing considering Joe Biden caused the inflation in the first place. So these leftists in our comment section that literally called me a Nazi on multiple videos now. I think we have a prestigious kind of award at this point where you're kind of grabbing hold of the culture and making an effect when the leftists are starting to comment on your video calling you a Nazi when you're outright not a Nazi. You hate racism, you hate evil. Nazis are evil. You absolutely hate them and despise Nazis, but it's not going to stop them from going into our comment section and calling me one, a racist, a Nazi, of which I am not. But it is kind of a badge of prestige because you've kind of made it somewhere on the internet community, or again, the culture of the left attacking you. But it's just amazing how they're going to sit there and boast about how Joe Biden's doing so great in the economy when literally he caused it in the first place. It's like some guy burning down your house and you're going, what the hell, man? That was my entire house. You go, well, we'll build it for you. We'll build it back, but it's going to be on your dime and you should thank me for it. That's basically what's happening here. It's asinine. It's crazy, but that's the Biden administration's policy. Well, moving into our next segment, folks, from the White House press briefing, we have a reporter here, Wajia, I always mispronounce her name, questioning the White House on what's Joe Biden's response to no suspects from the Secret Service on cocaine in the White House. Let's hear her response here.
First, following up on the cocaine, you said that it was very important to President Biden that the Secret Service get to the bottom of who brought it into the White House. So can you just talk about his reaction when he learned that the investigation did not end with a suspect?
No, and I appreciate the question. Look, I'm just not going to opine on this, not going to get into specific on this. We believe the Secret Service did a thorough investigation. We've been briefed of the outcome. They shared the detail in a public statement, which I think is important for the American people to hear directly from the Secret Service who did the investigation. Look, one of the things that they said in the public statement is hundreds of people come through this particular area, and it's a heavily traveled working area, and so that's what they were able to find doing this thorough investigation. And so, especially during that weekend, we think about Friday, that Saturday, and that Sunday, and also that I believe that Monday, that weekend, I should just say, that it was heavily traveled.
So is the president satisfied with the explanation that someone was able to bring an illegal substance into the White House because there are hundreds of people who come here?
What I will say is that the Secret Service did a thorough investigation. That's what we believe. They put out a public statement. I think that's important. Anything else detailing any details or any more information, I would reach out to the Secret Service.
Thank you. And then one more on Tuberville.
Wow. This is the same lady, you guys, when she was being questioned by the reporters in the White House Correspondents' Room, or at least the room of which they asked questions of, hey, whose was this? What's going on with the Secret Service? What entrance was it? Asking detailed questions of which she going, well, I don't want to get ahead of the investigation. Basically implying I don't want to get ahead of it, but when the investigation is done, and she did kind of elaborate on this as well in other White House press briefings of, well, then we'll talk about it once the investigation is done. Secret Service said the investigation's done. They don't have any suspects, which Dan Bongino, an ex-Secret Service member, you also had former FBI members, you also had former other Secret Service members that served under different presidents saying, yeah, this is BS, man. They got logs of these people. They got cameras everywhere. They know. They have suspects. They're not coming out and saying it, which means the White House is covering up something big here, folks. Maybe it was a staffer. Maybe it was somebody in the press. Maybe it was Hunter Biden, of which it just came out today that Hunter Biden was never questioned by the Secret Service about cocaine in the White House. The number one guy that we all know was addicted to cocaine was never questioned about possibly having a friend, a relative, or somebody leaving cocaine in the White House by the Secret Service. But it was done greatly, folks. There's never been a better investigation in the White House by the Secret Service than what we just saw with that whole debacle. And she's right to kind of be alarmed the fact that there was an illegal substance brought in the White House, because what's stopping another illegal substance from coming in, like anthrax or something like that, or something being sprinkled around the White House, of which could be spread, or some sort of virus as well being brought in the White House illegally by somebody that maybe shouldn't be there, or brought in as somebody that's, a spy of a foreign adversary and leaving some sort of virus smeared on cabinets or something is spreading across the White House, ultimately getting to the president. I think it's a big deal, but the White House is throwing this under the rug like it's nothing. But the fact that the investigation's over and she doesn't want to opine about it is typical from this administration, and it's typical from Karine Jean-Pierre never giving answers to these press. And again, we've asked a ton of times, why are they not fighting back? Why are they not questioning her and doing a walkout of like, we're tired of not getting our questions answered from you and constantly being, blacked out in a nutshell of any information coming out of this administration. And when we do get information, it's propaganda, it's lying, and it's, quite frankly, we've all had enough of it here. Well, enough of me ranting. We have another reporter here questioning Karine Jean-Pierre on the deficit as well as energy. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Get it.
Yeah, thanks, Crane. So the Penn Wharton budget model recalculated costs based on the new rules for the student loan forgiveness. The model now says that those rules will cost an additional $475 billion over the next 10 years. I'm just wondering when the president will unveil a plan that actually reduces spending.
So look, just a couple of things, because
She don't know what
as
to
it
say.
relates to,
Look at her.
and you're talking about the student loan?
She don't have a clue.
The new rules from the Department of
So look, the Department of Education, they estimated this particular piece to cost about $156 billion over the next decade. And the reason why we were able to do this, the reason why we believe this is being done in a responsible way, and let's not forget, we can afford to give middle-class Americans, middle-class families, a little bit of breathing room, as you hear from this president over and over again. And so, and it's because the progress that we have done to make sure that the deficit is coming down. And that is something that the president has done. Let's not forget, the first 2 years, the deficit has gone down by more than $1 trillion. And that is the end of deficit reduction because of Bidenomics, because of the work that he's been doing.
COVID spending coming off. The deficit's actually
Yeah, but it's
increasing
still-
according to the CBO.
Well, look, what we have seen is it's gone down over $1 trillion, right? And he has done this in a responsible way. And so he has done reduction. As we look at the deficit, it has come down and done so more than any other president has been able to do in their first 4 years of the administration. And so that's important as well. And so he's taken policies that have been responsible, that has made sure that it doesn't add to the deficit, that it actually decrease the deficit. And you've seen that if you think about the Inflation Reduction Act, you've seen that over and over again in historical pieces of legislation that he's put
Let me
forward.
ask you about EVs.
Straight up lying, you guys. Straight up lying time and time again. The same lie of, we created 13 million new jobs. Real wages are up. The deficit is going down. It's all lies, which is astonishing. Well, it's Bidenomics. You haven't even started Bidenomics yet. You just created that a month ago, which Joe Biden had no idea about. He found out about it on the news, where his own staff came up with it and never told the guy, probably because he was sleeping. So you haven't actually instituted Bidenomics at all. That's why you're doing a rebranding. You don't rebrand something that was already implemented. You're doing a rebranding because you're going to be changing different facets of a brand that wasn't working in the first place. And so because it wasn't working in the first place, you're doing a rebranding. You didn't do all this. You got fact-checked on Twitter, which we just saw in the previous segment, of real wages. They have not gone up. They've gone down. And you go, we're starting the time frame in 2021. You guys did a similar tactic with gas prices. Gas prices are going down. No, they're still up. No, they're going down since Putin invaded Ukraine. Yeah, but you were in office before Putin ever invaded Ukraine, and gas prices were already on the rise. So what are you talking about? Inflation's down. Well, one, you caused it, and it's still up higher than it was before you took office. So inflation is still up, but you're always cherry picking. You're always starting it at a specific date and time that fits best to your narrative. Bunch of liars, man.
Ford just cut the price of the F-150. Cox Automotive is showing that dealerships now have a 92-day supply of EVs on their lots, which is about twice the average for a gas-powered car on their lot. Is this the marketplace speaking, saying that people don't want this transition as quickly?
So, look, I've seen that same study. A couple things that I also want to make sure that folks know about. The EV sales hit a record high last quarter and increased nearly 50% from the same time last year. So that's important to note. And EV prices are actually down 20% per year over year on average, with EVs that are eligible for the Inflation Reduction Act credit seeing high demand. So we're seeing a lot of high demand here, which matters as we're looking at this study. And because of what this president has done, and the congressional Democrats, as we think about the Inflation Reduction Act, sales are going up. Costs are coming down. That's important to note. It's also good to see that after a couple of years where it was hard to find electric vehicles, they are now readily available for consumers. So, that is also important as we move forward with the Inflation Reduction Act, as we move forward in implementing a very historical piece of legislation that's going to deal with climate change, that's going to create record jobs, right? Good paying union jobs. All of these things are coming out of the work that this president and Democrats have been able to get done.
What an astonishing messaging. Some of which didn't make sense. Well, there's a high demand, but there's a huge supply of it, and it's only gone up 50%. But if there's a big demand for something and prices have gone lower, you tend to see the reverse of when there's a high demand for something, prices tend to increase because there's a higher demand for it. People want it. Thus, because people want to buy a product of which is high demand, you can increase the prices because, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but there's a demand. So, of which came out of her mouth is nothing but lies, spinning. Oh, well, there's a 50% increase. Yeah, but what was the previous numbers? And where are you cherry picking that data once again? And that kind of goes into a more deeper conversation with the White House of, I don't know what to believe from you, lady. You lie so much. You construed the data in a way that manipulates what you're trying to say, and it manipulates it in your favor of trying to push false narratives on the American people. You've lied about everything. You say you're transparent each and every press briefing, of which you're not. All our audience are frustrated as hell with you. They're tired of this, of you lying constantly day in and day out. And again, I would like to see some pushback from the press here and call her out on this crap of her just straight up lying. But, if they push back, you guys, and they don't get a question for like 3 weeks, they get put in the penalty box, which we've seen happen to Peter Ducey. Simon in there literally hasn't got a question for almost a year, you guys. That African American, he's literally the reporter for Africa, hasn't got a question in like 10 or 11 months. But if you had a White House press secretary do that to a black man, it'd be racism, right? It'd be discrimination. But because she's black and doing it to another black man, it's no issues or no concerns. Well, moving into our last story of the day from this White House press briefing, kind of fun here. John Kirby gets questioned on the UAPs and the UFOs and the whistleblowers that are coming out about all this. And Congress, specifically the GOP, is going to hold congressional hearings regarding the whistleblowers and the information that some of these private companies have, like Raytheon as well as Lockheed Skunk Works. And they only have 6 months to a year to disclose what they have before I think you're going to see some serious ish be disclosed to all of us. Let's hear it.
Gains steam here in Washington, which is UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yes,
there's
I know what
going
that
to be
is.
a House Oversight Committee hearing at the end of this month. Senator Schumer has put forth an amendment to the NDAA that is modeled after the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. What level of transparency does the Biden administration believe that the American public deserves and should have as it relates to UAPs?
Well, without speaking to proposed legislation, I won't do that. As you know, the Pentagon has stood up an entire organization to help collate and coordinate the reporting and analysis of sightings of UAP across the military. Before that, there wasn't really a coordinated, integrated effort to do that. And of course,
there wasn't a coordinated effort to do that because you guys were suppressing the information from coming out. The only reason that was a coordinated effort was because you had whistleblowers come out and say, hey, we're engaging these craft that we don't have any idea of who they are and where they're coming from, literally every week off the West Coast and East Coast of the United States. Not every year, not like once a year, not in a blue moon, every single week. And some say every single day we're engaging these craft off the coast of California and off the East Coast there in the Atlantic. And this guy's going to be like, oh, well, we've done some drastic measures here of getting some information out, making it basically not a problem for people to talk about it. No, you had people come out as whistleblowers and say they've seen crap.
We'll always want to be as transparent with members of Congress and with the American people as we can, considering national security concerns.
This used to get laughed at for quite some time, for years and
What
decades.
gets laughed at?
The idea of Congress taking this up. I mean, Gerald Ford talked about this.
Really, John, you can't connect the dots of what he's talking about of what gets laughed at. First, you go, when he talks about what a UFO and a UAP is, well, I know what it is. Yeah, but there's people like me and others that watch us that don't know what a UAP is because you guys changed the acronym for literally decades. So when people are looking up information about UFOs, you guys change it to UAPs. Well, I know what it is. Not everybody knows what a UAP is, John. And then you're going to sit there and go, what's laughable? You know what he's talking about. You know the stigma that goes involved with this. Your own military talks about the stigma. You guys created a stigma in the military where somebody's disclosing information to those above them, their superiors, and then it just gets, underskirted under the rug. Oh, you'll lose your a level of clearance or whatever it may be about this whole thing. It's so frustrating to me.
As a congressman back in 1966, and here we are, what is that, 60 years later, give or take. Is this a legitimate issue? Does the administration believe that getting to the bottom of these sightings in the air, is it a real concern? Is it a real legitimate issue as you see it?
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have stood up an organization at the Pentagon to analyze and try to collect and coordinate the way these sightings are reported if we didn't take it seriously. Of course we do. I mean, some of these phenomena we know have already had an impact on our training ranges. For when pilots are out trying to do training in the air and they see these things, they're not sure what they are, and it can have an impact on their ability to perfect their skills. So it already had an impact here, and we just want to better understand it. Now, we're not saying what they are or what they're not. We're saying that there's something our pilots are seeing. We're saying it has had an effect on some of our training operations, and so we want to get to the bottom of it. We want to understand it better. So, yes.
Do you believe these whistleblowers that have come forward?
I'm not going to talk about individual whistleblowers.
You guys, it's always interesting to me to hear John Kirby and this goes for Republican administrations as well, going, well, we know it's a huge issue. They're flying over our military installations. We don't know what they are. It's a hazard to our fighter pilots. They can actually run into some of these things. There's been close calls before. And we want to get to the bottom line of this. Folks, this has been going on for decades and decades. You're telling me that our U.S. military can't get to the bottom line of what these are? I mean, what does that say? Again, I always raise this question. What does it say about our military? This guy, admiral or not, does a terrible job in representing what our military is by always saying, well, we don't know. We don't have enough information. I don't have any answers on that. I'm not going to speak for them. I mean, he doesn't give you anything. If anything, it degrades our military. Oh, well, we think that our military personnel, to have military readiness, should be able to kill innocent children through the use of abortion. Oh, well, we think that, the LGBTQ community should get their abortions resolved, or they should be able to have their transition of one sex to another, in air quotes, paid for by the taxpayers through our military budget. Like, it's so degrading to the military. And again, I have not served. I've had family members that served. I'm a big supporter of our military. But what the Democrats continually do to our military and continue to degrade it has been going on for a long time. It's always they degrade it, and then the Republicans come in office and have to try to build things back up and get things back on track once again. You'll see recruitment go up if Trump's in office. You'll see Trump give more money to the military, and rightfully so. You'll see him trying to enhance our military projects, try to build up our allies as well, because there's actual enemies out there. But he's just going to sit there and then act dumb. Oh, I don't know what UAPs are in terms of the stigma and all these other things. Come on, man. Give me a freaking break. What a joke. Well, folks, we're going to keep it simple today with just a White House press briefing. I do have other news to get to. I do have an announcement. I'm going to be out of the country from the 20th till I think the 24th. So I'm going to have some pre-recorded stuff for you. We'll have a show on Thursday, I believe. Probably nothing on Friday. We'll see. Supernatural Saturdays will be there this week. I'll have a short episode for Sunday and possibly nothing on Monday. So we'll see, up in the air on Friday and Mondays of this week and next week to see if there's any show. But be on the lookout. You know that I always premiere it, and I always love your support. Head over to baldbrad.com, get yourself some merch. Folks, the book is a little bit cheaper on Amazon. I don't have any control over that, so if you want to get a paperback or hardcover, I think the not audiobook, forgive me, we don't have that. The Kindle version is like $8.99. A lot of people from the Blaze, I've seen in my analytics on Amazon, have been buying up the book. So if you even look at like Glenn Beck stuff or whatever, it seems like a lot of the people from the Blaze are really enjoying the book because they are buying it on their end. But anywho, hit that like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member today. It's down there in the join tab. We would love your support. Become a true American patriot. Hang out in our community, our live chat in the comment section. We are here each and every day on the Ball Brad Show. And folks, thank you for your support, and I'll see you tomorrow here on the Ball Brad Show.